Hey guys, so I'm gonna do a video today explaining the difference between an endurance road bike and a race road bike. For some, that's an obvious thing, but I've noticed that a lot of people, when I'm talking about an endurance bike or showing some bikes, they have like kind of a question mark face of the differences and which bike they should choose when selecting a road bike. That's okay. I didn't know that the difference, it wasn't obvious for me, but as of course, the more I rode, the more I knew about bikes, it becomes pretty obvious. Now, I want to show you guys the few differences, the pros, the cons, so let's get into it and see some road bikes. All right, so let's start with the endurance bike. This is a Canyon Edurace. It's their comfort bike, and yes, the endurance bike is a comfort bike, not a comfort bike hybrid bike. It's a road bike that is more comfortable. Yeah. So if you're looking for a road bike and you want to spend many hours riding on the road, feeling as comfortable as possible, you should choose an endurance bike like this one. There is a very extreme ones that have like shock and suspension on it, so we'll observe all the vibration from the road and you will feel even more comfortable. But put in mind that always when you put some suspension or some shock absorbent, it will compromise power and efficiency because power will be lost. This one, for example, doesn't, but the geometry and to be very objective, this bike will have you sitting on it without leaning too much forward, so it will be easier on your lower back, on your neck, on your shoulders, on your hips, so you will be sitting more upright. It will put you in a more upright position. Of course, you can always do that by adjusting your stem, putting a stem with a positive angle and putting your headset as higher as you can. But if you have a more race bike that has a shorter head tube, and that's one of the main differences you will see in an endurance bike compared to a race bike, is that the head tube usually on an endurance bike is higher, is longer, so it will help you to keep you more upright. So another difference is the wheelbase. That's the distance of the rear hub and the front hub of the bike. An endurance bike has a wider wheelbase and the race bike has a shorter. And the wider you have, the more stability it has, but it takes a little longer to respond. So for me, for example, I ride a race bike that has a shorter wheelbase, and anything I do it quickly, it's very snappy, very responsive. When I took this bike for a ride, I really felt it took a little longer. So sometimes for some people, that's a little annoying because you want the bike to respond quickly and an endurance bike doesn't. But in the other hand, it will also hand super smoothly. So you won't have any sudden like responses on the bike compared to a race bike. So with the right bike fit, right bike size, and this geometry, you can ride for long hours, even if you're not super flexible, even if you have issues with your lower back. Sitting with a bike fitter and with this bike, you can do wonders, and it will keep you on the road riding comfortable for a long time. So let's check the Ultimate, that it's also a Canyon bike, but it's their race bike. Just before we go, let's measure the head tube. All right, so this is a race bike. This is the Canyon Ultimate. So it's their version designed to be faster, more aggressive, but of course, it can compromise a little bit of your comfort, especially if you're not used to riding and you don't have the proper bike fit. But the main difference is you're gonna stay usually much higher on your saddle compared to the handlebars. If we measure the head tube, it's usually shorter. So this is a little under 5 inches. The Edurace was 6 inches, so it's an inch shorter just on the head tube. And the wheelbase, it's a tiny bit shorter. Also, another thing that will influence a lot how aggressive your bike steers, if it's calmer or more snappy, is also the head tube angle. So the more angle to the front you have, your fork is angled to the front, the calmer it will be. Less angled, more aggressive it will be. And this is not a rule, but usually the race bike will be more aerodynamic and it will be lighter. Like the endurance bikes, they have different categories and extremes. On race bikes, you also have that, and you have usually two main distinct categories. That is the lighter climbing bike and the more aerodynamic road bike. And Canyon has the Ultimate and has the Aeroad, that is a more aerodynamic bike that I will show you now. Okay, so this is the Aeroad from Canyon, and this is purely aerodynamic. All their thoughts were put in this bike to be very efficient aerodynamically. So you will see the lines, they're very rounded, and everything projected in this bike is to avoid any drag. So a bike manufacturer will put this bike on a wind tunnel and test how the wind reacts to the frame. So if you want to choose, like let's say, okay, I decided I want a race bike, so which one should I choose? The Ultimate, a more lighter bike, although, you know, weight nowadays with carbon improving so much, I think the difference between like this bike and the Ultimate, it's like 300, 400 grams. That's like almost nothing. And you will see Matt van der Poel riding the Tour de France only with the Aeroad, even going up the mountains. So that's crazy. Although Lucas has been riding this bike specifically, and he did ride the Ultimate for a couple times, and he did notice on the steep hills that we have here that the Ultimate responded much better on the hills compared to the Aeroad, but on the flats, there's no comparison. This bike is super fast. Now you can make the Ultimate also very aerodynamic and very fast on the flat if you put like deeper wheels, and I think that's actually what maybe Lucas felt on the hill and on the flats was the wheels, because one of the greatest improvements you can do on a bike is putting carbon deep wheels on it, and you will definitely feel the difference in speeds. So my opinion is, if you lived in a place that like Switzerland or Colorado, I don't know, where there's a lot of mountains, I would probably go with the Ultimate because it's a more overall bike, and you can have maybe two sets of wheels, one very light wheels where you don't need it to be very deep, and you can go up the mountains, and when you're riding on the flats, or if you have a crit or a flat race, you put some deep rims and ride with the Ultimate. That would be the perfect scenario. I think for Florida, that is pretty flat, even though here we have some pretty steep hills. I would go with the Aeroad for sure, especially if you live like in Miami where it's totally flat, then it makes total sense to ride an Aeroad. There are some bike manufacturers that have changed this and have combined the super light with the total aerodynamics, and Specialized has done that. I have a Specialized here, the SL7. Okay, so this is the Specialized SL7, and Specialized a couple years ago combined the Venge, that was their aerodynamic, really aero bike, with the tarmac, and made the tarmac very aero and very light. But I think there's rumors that they're going back and launching a more aero bike. But this also is a great bike and an overall race, up climbing hill, on the flats. You can have everything on this bike. This has aluminum wheels, pretty light wheels to climb the hills or the mountains, and maybe if I had a crit or a race that was totally flat, I would put some deeper rims on them. On the back of me, you can see a totally different bike. Let's check it out. Okay, this is a total different one. I wasn't even gonna put this on the video, but it was here for service. This is a tri-bike. It's not a road bike. It's a very specific, for a specific type of ride if you're doing triathlon or time trial. And I'm not gonna get into it, but of course, aerodynamic, pure aerodynamic, heavier bike. But this is meant for you to ride alone and be very, very efficient. So maybe a subject for a next video. Phew. All right, so I think I covered the very basic of comparing the endurance bike with a race bike and differences between the race bikes. You know what? If you were still in doubt which bike you should choose, Retool, some bike fitters, they have this equipment where you can go to their bike fit studio and do a bike fit without a bike, and they can help you choose a bike according to your fit. Of course, you're going to share with them what do you want to do. Do you want to race? Do you want to do endurance rides and ride for long periods of time? Your priority is performance, your priority is comfort. It depends a lot of what you're going to do, and then the bike fitter will definitely put you on a machine, a bike that he will adjust and see your flexibility and the optimal position for you, and he will be able to refer you for a specific bike or different type of bikes. So of course I miss a few things, but hopefully this video helped you a little bit with a little bit more information about an endurance bike and a race bike. And if you still have questions, leave them in the comments. I will definitely reply them. And once again, thank you for watching. I'll get back to work because there's a lot of things to do in bike shop today. So take care, guys. I'll see you on our next ride experience. Ciao.
Hey, Tito bike, see it! Woo-hoo!